My name is Laura, and I am 58 years old. After 35 years of a beautiful marriage, I found myself alone when my beloved Frank passed away. Just when I thought the pain could not get worse, I received an urgent call from my son Jason and his wife Melissa. They needed help with their twins. Little did I know that when I arrived, I would be faced with an ultimatum that would change everything: babysit full-time without pay or leave their home and never return. Before I continue with what happened after I was given this shocking choice, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you have ever experienced ingratitude from those you love most, hit the subscribe button. My story might just give you the courage you need to stand up for yourself too. Frank and I built a life filled with love, even when we did not have much else. Our small ranch-style home in Michigan became our sanctuary, the place where we raised our only son Jason with all the care and attention we could give. I willingly gave up my budding career as a librarian to stay home with him. Frank worked long hours at the manufacturing plant to ensure we could afford a comfortable life, never complaining even when exhaustion lined his face. "A child needs his mother," Frank would say whenever I felt guilty about not contributing financially. "What you give Jason is worth more than any paycheck." Those early years were magical despite our tight budget. I read to Jason every night, nurturing his imagination with stories of brave knights and distant worlds. We baked cookies together on rainy afternoons, his small hands covered in flour as he giggled at his own creations. Frank taught him how to throw a baseball in our modest backyard patient, even when Jason missed catch after catch. We made sacrifices without hesitation. No exotic vacations, just camping trips to the state park. Christmas presents were few, but thoughtfully chosen. Our car was 10 years old, but meticulously maintained by Frank, who refused to go into debt for a newer model. "We are rich in the ways that matter" became our family motto. Jason thrived under our love. He grew into a kind, intelligent boy who excelled in school and made us proud with his thoughtfulness toward others. When he earned a scholarship to college, Frank and I cried happy tears knowing our sacrifices had paid off. "You raised a good man," our neighbors would tell me, and nothing made me prouder. Then, Jason met Melissa during his final year of university. She was stunning with her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes. From their first date, he was smitten, calling me with excitement I had not heard since he was a child opening Christmas presents. "She is the one, Mom," he declared after just 3 months of dating. The wedding 5 years ago marked the beginning of subtle changes. Melissa was polite but distant at the ceremony, barely acknowledging the handmade quilt I had spent months creating as their wedding gift. When I tried to help with wedding preparations, she insisted on handling everything herself with her wedding planner. "Different generation, different expectations," Frank reassured me when I confessed feeling pushed aside. "Give her time to become part of the family." I tried to follow his advice, inviting them for Sunday dinners and offering to help when they purchased their first home. My offers were met with polite refusals. "We want to do this ourselves," Jason would say, though I noticed he now used phrases and expressions that sounded nothing like him, and everything like Melissa. Then, 8 months ago, the unthinkable happened. Frank complained of indigestion after dinner. By midnight, he was gone. A massive heart attack took him without warning. My world collapsed in an instant. 35 years of marriage ended in the time it took for the paramedics to pronounce him dead in our living room. The funeral passed in a blur of faces and condolences. Jason stood by me during the service but left immediately after for an important work commitment. Melissa did not even try to hide her impatience to leave. I found myself alone in our house filled with memories. Frank's coffee mug still in the dishwasher, his slippers by his favorite chair, his pillow that still carried his scent. Night after night, I cried myself to sleep, reaching across the bed for a husband who was no longer there. "Take all the time you need to grieve," my best friend Sarah told me, "but remember you still have a life to live." Finding that life proved harder than I imagined. Jason called occasionally, conversations growing shorter each time. My invitations to visit were met with excuses about work and other commitments. I understood he had his own life, but the distance between us grew wider with each passing week. I tried to fill my days with purpose, joining a grief support group at the local community center and volunteering at the animal shelter where Frank and I had adopted our beloved dog, now also gone. Still, the emptiness followed me, especially during family holidays and anniversaries that Frank and I had always celebrated together. Frank would want you to be happy, Sarah reminded me when I confessed I sometimes could not remember why I should get out of bed in the morning. I held on to that thought like a lifeline, determined to honor his memory by finding joy again. Little did I know that my next test would come from the person I least expected, the son I had given everything to raise. From the moment Jason introduced Melissa as his girlfriend, something felt off. She was polite, but coldly, so her smiles never reaching her eyes when she looked at me. Frank noticed too, but cautioned me against judging too quickly. "Give her a chance, Laura," he would say. "Remember how your mother was suspicious of me at first." So I tried. I invited them for home-cooked meals featuring Jason's childhood favorites. I asked about Melissa's work as a marketing executive. I complimented her taste in fashion and home decor, yet nothing seemed to crack the wall of formality she maintained between us. After their wedding, Jason's calls became less frequent. When they did visit, Melissa would check her watch repeatedly, always finding reasons why they needed to leave early. Holiday gatherings were shortened or skipped altogether due to prior commitments with her family. "They are just busy building their lives," Frank would reassure me, though I could see concern in his eyes too. Then came the moment I accidentally overheard Melissa on the phone while she was in our guest bathroom during one of their rare visits. "We will leave soon," she was saying to someone, her voice low but clear through the thin wall. "I can only take so much time with the annoying old lady. Jason needs to cut the cord already." I never told Frank or confronted them. Instead, I doubled my efforts to win her approval. I sent thoughtful gifts on their anniversaries. I offered help only when asked. I praised Melissa's accomplishments to anyone who would listen. When they announced Melissa's pregnancy, I was overjoyed. Twins, a boy and a girl. Surely grandchildren would bridge the growing gap between us. I knitted matching blankets and bought the safest, most educational toys I could find. "Please let me know if you need anything," I told them repeatedly as the due date approached. "I would love to help when the babies arrive." "We have it handled," Melissa responded. "We have hired a night nurse and will have a full-time nanny." The twins, Anna and Andrew, were born healthy and beautiful. I was allowed to visit them in the hospital for exactly 30 minutes. Additional visits were carefully scheduled and always supervised by Melissa, who handed me a printed list of rules for handling her children before I was permitted to hold them. "Babies need consistency," she explained, when I questioned why I could not kiss my own grandchildren on the cheek. "Our pediatrician recommends limiting physical contact with non-primary caregivers." Despite living only 30 minutes away, I saw the twins perhaps 4 times in their first year. Each time they regarded me with the suspicious eyes of strangers clinging to their mother or nanny when I approached. After Frank died, the already limited contact dwindled further. Jason called less claimed the twins were too busy with developmental activities for visits. My offers to come to them were deflected. "Mom, you need to build your own life," Jason told me during one brief phone call. "You cannot expect us to entertain you just because Dad is gone." His words stung like a physical slap. When had my loving son become this cold, dismissive man? What had happened to the boy who once wrote me the Mother's Day cards promising to take care of me when I was old? I tried to understand. Perhaps grief affected him differently. Perhaps the pressures of fatherhood and his demanding job as an investment banker were taking their toll. Perhaps Melissa was having a difficult time with the twins. So I gave him space while sending occasional texts with photos of birds in my garden or recipes I thought the twins might enjoy. Most went unanswered. The few replies were brief, impersonal. "Looks nice. Thanks. We'll try someday." I watched from a distance through social media as my grandchildren grew, learning about their first steps and words through Facebook posts, rather than being present for these milestones. I sent carefully chosen birthday and Christmas gifts, receiving only generic thank you texts in return. The pain of this rejection was different from the grief of losing Frank. This was a slow, ongoing wound that reopened with every missed opportunity to be part of my son's family. I began to wonder if I had somehow failed as a mother, if there was something fundamentally unlovable about me that even my own child could not bear my presence. Sarah tried to reassure me. "This is about them, not you," she insisted. Some women feel threatened by their mothers-in-law no matter how wonderful they are. I wanted to believe her, but doubt had taken root in my heart. Until that fateful morning when my phone rang with a call that would change everything. The shrill ring of my phone at 6:30 in the morning startled me from sleep. Seeing Jason's name on the screen sent my heart racing. A call this early could only mean bad news. "Jason, is everything okay? Are the twins all right?" I asked, my voice thick with sleep and worry. "Mom, we need your help," he said without preamble. "Melissa fell yesterday and broke her leg. She is in a cast from hip to ankle. Our nanny quit without notice, and I have to leave for London tonight on a business trip that cannot be postponed." Relief that no one was seriously hurt quickly gave way to surprise. After months of minimal contact, they needed me now. "Of course I will help," I said without hesitation. "When should I come over?" "Can you be here by noon? I have meetings all day before my flight. Melissa cannot manage the twins alone with her injury." I spent the morning in a flurry of activity, packing clothes for an extended stay, preparing several freezer meals they could heat easily, and even baking the chocolate chip cookies that had been Jason's favorite since childhood. Perhaps this emergency would provide an opportunity to reconnect, to rebuild the relationship that had grown so distant. When I arrived at their sprawling suburban home, Jason was already gone. Melissa sat on their expensive white leather sofa, her leg propped on pillows, scrolling through her phone. She barely looked up when I entered. "The twins are napping," she said by way of greeting. "Their schedule is on the refrigerator. Do not deviate from it." No hello, no thank you for coming, no acknowledgement of the food containers in my arms. I pushed down my disappointment and moved toward the kitchen. "I brought some homemade meals," I offered, "and cookies for the children." "We limit sugar," Melissa replied coldly, "and we follow a specific meal plan, but you can leave them if you want." I placed the food in the refrigerator, noting the printed schedule magneted to the door. Every hour of the twins' day was planned with military precision. Specific times for meals, educational activities, outdoor play, and even independent exploration periods. Next to it was a 3-page document titled Care Instructions, with bullet points covering everything from acceptable phrases to use with the children to the exact temperature of their bathwater. At the bottom, in bold letters, "No deviations without prior approval." When the twins woke from their nap, their reaction to my presence confirmed how little they knew me. 3-year-old Anna burst into tears while Andrew hid behind the nanny, cam-equipped stuffed bear in the corner of their room. "Stranger, stranger," Anna wailed despite Melissa's irritated assurance that I was their grandmother. It took hours of gentle coaxing to earn even a wary acceptance from them. By bedtime, Andrew would at least stay in the same room with me, though Anna continued to regard me suspiciously from behind furniture. After they were asleep, I asked Melissa about the nanny's sudden departure, thinking perhaps understanding the situation might help me avoid similar mistakes. "She got greedy," Melissa said dismissively. "Demanded a raise after only 6 months because she claimed the twins were more work than she expected. When we refused, she quit on the spot." Something in her tone made me wonder if there was more to the story, but I knew better than to press. Instead, I asked about Jason's trip. "How long will he be in London?" Melissa's expression hardened. "At least 2 months, maybe longer. The Singapore office is having problems and he might need to go there afterward." 2 months. The realization sank in that I had agreed to help without understanding the time frame. Still, these were my grandchildren, and Melissa clearly needed assistance, regardless of how little she wanted to admit it. "I am happy to help as long as needed," I said carefully, "but I should go home for fresh clothes and to take care of a few things if it will be that long." "We have a washer and dryer," Melissa replied, not looking up from her phone, "and Jason said you do not have anything urgent happening in your life now that you are alone." The casual cruelty of the comment stung, but I maintained my composure. "Even so, I would need to arrange for my mail to be collected and check on the house." "Whatever," she said with a dismissive wave. "Just make sure the twins stick to their routine. They have swim lessons on Tuesdays and Thursdays, music class on Wednesdays, and junior science exploration on Fridays. You will need to take them since I cannot drive with this cast." As I prepared for bed in their impersonal guest room with its hotel-like decor, I realized that despite being invited into their home, I was being treated more like hired help than family. Still, I resolved to make the best of the situation for the sake of building a relationship with my grandchildren. Little did I know then that this was just the beginning of a test that would push me to my breaking point and force me to make one of the most difficult decisions of my life. 3 days passed in a blur of activity. I woke at 5:30 each morning to prepare for the twins' 600 a.m. wake-up, followed their detailed schedule with religious precision, and collapsed into bed each night exhausted both physically and emotionally. Despite my best efforts, Melissa found fault with nearly everything I did. The twins' clothes were folded incorrectly. The organic vegetables were cut in the wrong shape. I read their bedtime story with too much expression, which would overstimulate them before sleep. Not once did she utter a thank you, not even when I took on the additional task of preparing her meals and helping her to the bathroom, despite my own arthritic hip that protested each time I supported her weight. The twins slowly warmed to me, especially when Melissa was napping and could not monitor our interactions. Andrew showed me his collection of toy dinosaurs, his little face lighting up when I knew the difference between a Triceratops and Stegosaurus, thanks to the dinosaur phase Jason had gone through at the same age. Anna cautiously allowed me to braid her hair, eventually giggling when I pretended the hairbrush was tickling my fingers. These small moments of connection were worth the exhaustion and criticism, I told myself. This was why I was here. For them. On the evening of the third day, Jason called via video chat from London. Melissa immediately asked me to leave the room so they could have private family time. I retreated to the kitchen, trying not to feel hurt at being excluded from what apparently constituted family. 20 minutes later, they called me back to the living room. Jason's tired face filled the tablet screen, the London night visible through a hotel window behind him. "Mom, we need to discuss arrangements," he began without preamble. As I told Melissa, this assignment is critical for my career. The partners are watching this project closely, and success could mean a promotion to senior management. I nodded, not sure where this was heading. "The thing is," he continued, glancing at something off-screen, "I will be gone for at least 2 months, possibly longer. Melissa cannot manage the twins alone with her injury, which will take at least 8 weeks to heal properly." "I understand that," I replied. "I am happy to help during the day, though I will need to go home occasionally to check on things." Melissa and Jason exchanged a look through the screen. Then Melissa spoke, her voice coldly practical. "That is not going to work. The twins need consistent care, and I need assistance during the night, too. Getting up with this cast is nearly impossible." Jason cleared his throat. "What Melissa is saying, Mom, is that we need full-time help. Live-in." "Oh," I said, surprised, but still willing. "I suppose I could stay over more regularly, but I would still need to—" "You have 2 options," Melissa interrupted, her voice sharp. "Either you stay here as the full-time caregiver until Jason returns, or you leave now and do not come back. We cannot have the twins getting attached and then confused by your coming and going." I stared at her, stunned by the ultimatum. "But it is not unreasonable," Jason cut in, his tone matching Melissa's. "You are living alone in that big house. You do not have a job or commitments. And honestly, Mom, we have been generous letting you stay here already. It is time you gave back to the family." Generous, letting me stay, gave back. The words hit like physical blows. In 3 days, I had cooked, cleaned, cared for their children from dawn until bedtime, and tended to my injured daughter-in-law without a single word of thanks. I would need payment if this is to be a full-time position. I found myself saying the words, surprising even me. Live-in nannies for twins typically earn substantial salaries, especially with the additional duty of caring for an injured adult. Melissa's laugh was sharp and dismissive. "Payment for taking care of your own grandchildren. That is ridiculous. This is family responsibility, not employment. Besides," Jason added, "it is not like you have skills that would command payment. You have been a housewife most of your adult life. We are offering you purpose." I felt as if all the air had been sucked from the room. This was my son, my only child, the baby I had nursed through fevers and taught to read, the boy whose skinned knees I had bandaged, and whose broken heart I had mended after his first rejection. Now, he looked at me as if I were a burden, a resource to be used rather than a person to be loved. "You should be grateful," Melissa added, twisting the knife. "It is not like you have anything else to do. You are just a widow with no special skills. We are giving you the chance to be useful." The room swam before my eyes, but I managed to keep my voice steady. "I need to think about this." "There is nothing to think about," Melissa snapped. "Either commit to staying until Jason returns or pack your bags tonight. We will find someone else if you choose not to help your own family." Jason's face on the screen showed no emotion, no recognition of the cruelty in their demand. "Let us know your decision by morning. I have another call in 5 minutes." The screen went black before I could respond. I sat frozen on their expensive sofa, feeling more alone than I had even in the darkest days after Frank's death. That night, I lay awake in their guest room, their ultimatum echoing in my mind, along with the casual cruelty of their assessment of my worth. Just a widow. No special skills. Should be grateful. This was no longer about helping family through a difficult time. This was about being used, devalued, and controlled. In the darkness, I could almost hear Frank's voice, a memory from years ago when a neighbor had treated me dismissively at a community meeting. "Never stay where you are not respected, Laura," he had told me. "You deserve better than that. Always." Tears slipped silently down my cheeks as I realized how far my relationship with my son had fallen and how little value he now placed on his mother. Somewhere along the way, I had lost him, or perhaps Melissa had taken him. Either way, the loving boy I raised was gone, replaced by a cold man who saw his mother as nothing more than convenient free labor. As dawn broke, I reached for my phone and texted Sarah, my oldest friend who had stood by me through Frank's death and my loneliness after. "Can you talk? I need advice." The call with Sarah lasted nearly an hour, made from the privacy of my car parked at the end of their driveway to ensure we would not be overheard. They said what? Sarah's indignation carried clearly through the phone. "After all you have done, after raising that boy, after dropping everything to help them without notice, I think Jason has changed." I said the admission painful to voice, or perhaps I never truly knew him. Either way, I do not recognize the man who spoke to me last night. "That is Melissa's influence," Sarah insisted. "She has been isolating him from you for years. Frank saw it too. Remember how worried he was about Jason pulling away?" I did remember. Frank had noticed the pattern long before I allowed myself to see it, his protective instinct for me making him more objective about our son's gradual withdrawal. "What are you going to do?" Sarah asked finally. "I do not know," I admitted. "I love those children even though they barely know me, and despite everything I still love Jason. But to be treated this way, Laura," Sarah's voice grew serious. "What would you advise if I told you my daughter-in-law had called me useless and demanded I provide free childcare for months or never see my grandchildren again? What would you tell me to do?" The answer came immediately. I would tell you to walk away, that no relationship can be healthy with that kind of manipulation and disrespect. "Then why is it different when it happens to you?" Her question hung in the air between us. Why indeed? Had I so lost my sense of self-worth that I believed I deserved such treatment? Had widowhood diminished me so completely in my own eyes? "You are still Laura," Sarah continued gently. "The same intelligent, caring woman who raised a child, supported a husband, volunteered in your community. Frank would be heartbroken to see you devalued this way, and he would tell you to stand up for yourself." She was right, and deep down I knew it. The question was whether I had the courage to act on that knowledge. "But what about the twins?" I asked, my voice small. "If I leave, I might never see them again. And if you stay under these conditions, what example are you setting for them? That grandmother is the unpaid help, that it is okay to treat family like servants. Children learn by watching Laura. What lesson do you want to teach Anna and Andrew about how women, how older people, how families should be treated?" After we hung up, I sat in my car watching the sun rise fully over their affluent neighborhood. In the growing light, I began to see my situation with new clarity. I had spent my life caring for others. First Jason, then Frank in his final years, and now I was being asked to care for everyone except myself. What resources did I have? Frank had left me our house paid off years ago through his diligent saving. His life insurance policy, while not extravagant, provided a modest safety net. Our retirement savings were adequate, though not luxurious. More importantly, What did I have beyond material resources? Education, intelligence, a lifetime of skills unrecognized by my son and his wife. I could cook, manage a household, nurture children. I had been a librarian before Jason was born, my love of books and organization never fading. I had volunteered at literacy programs, managed the finances for Frank's small side business, repairing antique clocks, coordinated events for our church. These were not nothing. I was not nothing. With trembling fingers, I dialed another number, my cousin Martha in Arizona, whom I had not seen since Frank's funeral but who had called regularly to check on me. Martha? It is Laura. I need to ask you something important. Anything, cousin. You know that. Did you mean it when you said there was room for me in Arizona if I ever wanted a change of scenery? Martha's response was immediate and warm. The guest room is already made up and you can stay as long as you need. Is everything okay? For the first time in days, perhaps months, I felt a flicker of hope. No, everything is not okay, but I think it might be eventually. As I hung up, another memory surfaced. Frank and me on our 30th anniversary, dancing slowly in our living room to the same song that had played at our wedding. Do you have any regrets? I had asked him. About us, about our choices. He had pulled back to look at me, his eyes crinkling with the smile I had loved for decades. Not one, but if I could give my younger self advice, I would tell him one thing. What is that? To remember that love requires respect. The minute that goes, so does love. We got it right, Laura. We always respected each other, even when we disagreed. Respect. The word echoed in my mind as I walked back into my son's house to face the decision that would reshape the remainder of my life. That morning, I rose earlier than usual and prepared a special breakfast. Heart-shaped pancakes with fresh berries, scrambled eggs just the way the twins liked them, with the cheese melted on top but not mixed in, and crispy bacon for Melissa, who claimed to avoid carbs but always stole pieces from Jason's plate when she thought no one was looking. I set the table beautifully using the cloth napkins reserved for special guests, according to their household rules. When the twins came downstairs in their matching pajamas, their eyes widened at the spread. "Special breakfast?" Andrew asked, climbing carefully into his booster seat. "Very special." I confirmed, helping Anna with her napkin, because today is a day for important decisions. We ate together, the twins chattering about their toys and the birds they had seen in the yard yesterday. I soaked in their small voices, the way Andrew's nose wrinkled when he laughed, how Anna twisted her hair when she was thinking hard. These moments were precious, all the more so for their rarity in my life. After breakfast, I took them to the playroom and spent an hour building block towers and having tea parties with stuffed animals. When Melissa finally emerged from her bedroom, leaning on her crutches and frowning at the clock, I had already cleaned the kitchen and started a load of laundry. "You let them play before their scheduled educational activity time," she noted accusingly, lowering herself to the sofa. "Yes," I agreed, simply not offering excuses or apologies. Something had shifted in me overnight, a willingness to stand firm rather than bend to avoid conflict. "Well, have you made your decision?" Melissa asked, cutting directly to the point. "Jason texted me earlier asking if you had committed yet. He needs to know whether to start interviewing nannies remotely." I had indeed made my decision, one that had crystallized as I watched the twins sleeping last night, their innocent faces so reminiscent of Jason at that age. I told her, keeping my voice calm and even. "I would like to speak with Jason as well, if possible." Melissa rolled her eyes but reached for her tablet. "Fine. He should be available now. It is evening in London." The video call connected, showing Jason in what appeared to be a hotel restaurant, the remains of a meal visible before him. He looked annoyed at the interruption. "Mom, I only have a few minutes. What have you decided?" I looked at the face of my son, searching for traces of the boy I had raised, and took a deep breath. "I have decided to leave." The words hung in the air for a moment before Melissa's reaction shattered the silence. "What? You cannot be serious after all we have done for you." Jason's expression darkened. "Mom, I do not think you understand the situation. If you leave now, that is it. We will not be calling you again when we need help. You will not be welcome in our home." I felt a curious sense of calm, despite their anger. "I understand perfectly, but I cannot accept the terms you have offered. I am willing to help on a reasonable schedule with appropriate boundaries and respect for my time and effort. I am not willing to be an unpaid live-in servant who is spoken to dismissively and given ultimatums. This is ridiculous, Melissa sputtered, her face flushing. This is about family duty, your own grandchildren. Yes, they are my grandchildren, I agreed. Grandchildren I have barely been allowed to know because you have limited my access to them since birth. Grandchildren who were frightened of me 3 days ago because I am essentially a stranger to them. This is not about me abandoning my grandchildren. They were kept from me long before this moment. Jason's voice cut through Melissa's continuing protests. So you are just going to walk out, leave Melissa injured and alone with 2 toddlers? What kind of mother does that make you? The question was designed to hurt, to trigger my guilt. A day earlier it might have worked. Now I met his gaze steadily through the screen. I am the kind of mother who taught her son to treat others with respect and gratitude, who showed him that love does not mean allowing yourself to be used or devalued, who demonstrated the importance of boundaries and self-respect. I paused, feeling a lifetime of suppressed words rising within me. I am sorry that those lessons did not take root, Jason. You ungrateful, Melissa began, but I raised my hand, surprising her into silence with the uncharacteristic gesture. My bags are already packed, I continued calmly. I have prepared meals for the next 3 days labeled with heating instructions in the freezer. The twins' laundry is done, and I have laid out their clothes for the rest of the week. You cannot do this, Jason insisted, his voice rising. We trusted you. We let you stay in our home when you had nowhere else to go. The statement was so divorced from reality that I almost laughed. I have my own home, Jason, a home your father and I worked for decades to provide. I came here to help you in what I thought was a family emergency. I did not realize I was being interviewed for an unpaid position with no days off, no respect, and no gratitude. Melissa was on her phone now, furiously typing. I am calling my mother. She will have to fly in. This is going to cost us a fortune because of your selfishness. I offered to help on reasonable terms, I reminded her. You rejected that option. Jason's face on the screen had gone from angry to coldly furious. If you walk out that door, do not expect to be part of this family anymore. Do not expect invitations to birthdays or holidays. Do not expect to watch the twins grow up. The threat struck at my deepest fear, but I held firm. That would be your choice. Jason, just as this is mine. I hope someday you will understand that respect must be part of love, not optional to it. Where will you even go? He demanded. Back to your empty house to be alone and miserable. I am going to start a new chapter, I said simply. Something I should have done months ago. His laugh was dismissive, so like Melissa's that it hurt to hear. A new chapter at your age? Be realistic, Mom. You need us more than we need you. I looked directly into the camera, speaking to the son I had lost somewhere along the way. That is where you are wrong, and that misunderstanding is why I am leaving now. Without waiting for his response, I stood and turned to Melissa. I will say goodbye to the twins and then be on my way. Do not bother, she snapped. Just go. You have done enough damage. Behind her, I saw 2 small faces peering around the doorway, confusion and worry evident in their expressions. Despite Melissa's words, I moved toward them, kneeling despite my arthritic hip to meet them at eye level. Grandma has to go now, I told them gently, but I want you to know that I love you very much. Always remember that. Andrew's small hand touched my cheek. Will you come back tomorrow? The innocent question broke my heart, but I kept my voice steady. Not tomorrow, sweetheart, but I will be thinking of you every day. Anna, ever observant, pointed to my suitcase by the door. Are you going on an adventure? I smiled at her, struck by the unexpected accuracy of her question. Yes, I suppose I am. A very important adventure. Can we come too? Andrew asked hopefully. Not this time, I told him. But maybe someday you will have your own adventures, and when you do, remember to be brave and kind. Melissa's voice cut through the moment. That is enough. Children, go to your playroom now. With one last look at their confused faces, I rose, collected my suitcase, and walked to the door. Melissa's voice followed me, sharp with anger and disbelief. You will regret this. When you are sitting alone in that empty house with no one who cares if you live or die, you will wish you had made a different choice today. I turned at the door, looking at the woman who had helped turn my son against me, and found only pity in my heart. I lived with love and respect for 35 years with Frank. I raised a child I was proud of. I have known what it means to be valued and cherished. That is how I know this situation is wrong. I kept my voice gentle, even kind. I hope someday you learn the difference between using people and loving them. With those words, I walked out into the morning sunlight, my heart breaking, but my spirit strangely, unexpectedly free. As I placed my suitcase in the trunk of my car, I could hear Melissa already on the phone, her voice raised in complaint to someone about my abandonment. But as I drove away from their perfect house in their perfect neighborhood, I knew with bone-deep certainty that I was not the one who had done the abandoning. The drive to the airport felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else take this bold, unexpected step. I had called Martha from a coffee shop after leaving Jason's house, confirming my plans to fly to Arizona that afternoon. My cousin's enthusiasm helped steady my shaking hands as I booked a last-minute flight. "The guest room is all ready," Martha assured me. "Stay as long as you need. Weeks, months, whatever it takes to figure out your next move." I had lived in Michigan my entire life. The thought of Arizona with its desert landscapes and unfamiliar rhythms was both terrifying and exhilarating. But something about the clean break appealed to me. A new place where no one knew me as Frank's widow or Jason's mother. Just Laura, a woman in her 50s with an uncertain future but a determined spirit. The first week at Martha's sun-drenched house passed in a blur of emotion. I alternated between crying jags that left me exhausted and strange moments of unexpected peace. Martha gave me space when I needed it, and companionship when the silence grew too loud. "You did the right thing," she repeated whenever doubt crept into my voice. "No one deserves to be treated that way, especially not by their own child." I checked my phone compulsively at first, hoping for a message from Jason, an apology, a recognition of what had happened, anything to indicate he regretted the rift between us. But my screen remained stubbornly free of notifications from him. What did come were increasingly angry texts from Melissa, ranging from accusations, "You have abandoned your family when we needed you most," to attempts at guilt. The twins' cry for their grandmother, to outright threats, "We will make sure you never see them again." After consulting with Martha, I blocked Melissa's number. "You do not need that negativity while you are healing," my cousin advised. "If Jason wants to reach out, he still can." But he did not, at least not in those early weeks. Instead, I threw myself into helping Martha around her house, cooking meals to repay her hospitality and tending to her small desert garden. The physical labor under the warm Arizona sun was therapeutic, giving my hands purpose while my heart slowly mended. At Martha's encouragement, I began exploring the small town she called home. The local library became my sanctuary, reminding me of my brief career before motherhood had redirected my path. When I mentioned my previous experience to the librarian during a casual conversation, her eyes lit up. "We have a part-time position open," she told me. "Just 15 hours a week helping with the children's reading program and some cataloging. Would you be interested?" The offer stunned me. It had been over 30 years since I had worked outside the home. "I am not sure I am qualified anymore," I admitted. "Everything must have changed since my day." She waved away my concerns. "The fundamentals are the same, and you have a natural way with people. We can teach you the technical updates." 2 days later, I found myself with a job offer, a modest salary, and a sense of purpose I had not felt since Frank's death. Working among books, helping children discover the joy of reading, organizing information, it fed something in my soul that had been starving. "You seem different," Martha observed one evening as we sat on her patio watching the spectacular Arizona sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Stronger somehow." "I feel different," I admitted. Still sad about Jason, still missing Frank, but also, I do not know, more myself. The weeks stretched into months. I found a small apartment I could afford on my library salary, supplemented by my savings. I made friends through a book club and a water aerobics class recommended by my doctor for my arthritic hip. I began to build a life, not the one I had imagined, but one with its own unexpected satisfactions. Then, 2 months after I had walked out of Jason's house with my suitcase, my phone rang with his number. My heart raced as I answered. Jason. Mom. His voice sounded tired, stressed. We need to talk. What followed was not the apology I had secretly hoped for, but a series of complaints. They had been unable to find a suitable nanny willing to live in. Melissa's mother had come for 2 weeks but left after constant conflicts with her daughter. Melissa had been forced to take a leave from her job to care for the twins. They were struggling. I am sorry to hear that, I said carefully. That sounds very difficult. So when are you coming back? He asked, as if my return was a foregone conclusion. Melissa's cast comes off next week, but she cannot manage the twins alone while I am still traveling. The old me might have immediately packed my bags, grateful for the chance to be needed to be allowed back into their lives. But that woman was gone, replaced by someone who understood her own value. I am not coming back, Jason, at least not under the same terms as before. I have a life here now. A job, an apartment, friends. His surprise was audible. A job? What kind of job could you possibly have? The dismissive tone reminded me sharply of our last conversation. Some things, it seemed, had not changed. I work at the local library, I told him, unable to keep a note of pride from my voice. I run the children's reading program 3 days a week, and I have been asked to coordinate their new senior outreach initiative. But that cannot pay much, he argued. You cannot seriously prefer that to being with your family. Being with family is not the same as being used by family, I said gently. I would love to have a relationship with you and the twins, but it needs to be built on mutual respect. This is ridiculous, he snapped. You are punishing us because Melissa said a few things that hurt your feelings. No, Jason, I am not punishing anyone. I am choosing a life where I am valued. There is a difference. We went back and forth, the conversation growing increasingly tense until finally he said the words that confirmed I had made the right decision. Fine. Stay there with your little library job and your new friends, but do not come crying to us when you realize how empty your life is without family. After we hung up, I sat in my small but cozy apartment looking at the books lining my new shelves, the potted succulents thriving on my balcony, the half-finished puzzle on my coffee table that I was working on with a new friend. Empty was not the word I would use to describe this life I was building. Over the following months, a pattern emerged. Jason would call when they were in crisis, when Melissa was overwhelmed, when the twins were particularly challenging, when his work demands increased. Each time, he assumed I would drop everything and return to Michigan to help. Each time, I gently but firmly declined unless the terms involved respect, reasonable expectations, and recognition of my own life and needs. Gradually, something shifted. The calls became less demanding, more conversational. Jason began to ask about my job, my apartment, my friends. He sent photos of the twins unprompted. Small steps, tentative ones, but movement nonetheless. 6 months after I had walked out with my suitcase, I received a different kind of message. An email with an attached letter that Jason had apparently written and rewritten many times, judging by his comments. I have been thinking about what happened, he wrote, about the person I became, the things I said and allowed to be said to you. I do not have excuses, only explanations that feel inadequate even to me. But I want you to know that I see now what I could not see then, that I failed you as a son, that I allowed Melissa's insecurities and my own ambitions to override the values you and Dad taught me. It was not a perfect apology. It did not immediately heal the deep wounds our estrangement had caused, but it was a beginning, a crack in the wall that had grown between us. I responded with equal honesty, expressing my hurt, but also my hope that we could build something new and healthier. I suggested a video call where I could see the twins, which led to regular Sunday evening conversations that slowly began to rebuild our connection. Melissa remained cool and distant during these calls, but no longer openly hostile. The twins, now approaching their 4th birthday, began to recognize me and even look forward to our virtual visits. "When are you coming to see us, Grandma?" They would ask their innocent question, both warming my heart and reminding me of the complicated reality we were navigating. Someday soon. I would promise, though, both Jason and I knew that soon was relative and conditional on continuing progress in our relationship. 1 year after leaving Michigan, I had built a life I never imagined possible at 58. I had my own apartment decorated exactly as I pleased. I had a job where I was respected and valued. I had friends who knew me as Laura, not just as someone's wife or mother. I had financial independence, modest though it was, and I was slowly rebuilding a relationship with my son and grandchildren on healthier terms. It was not the life I had planned. It was not the future Frank and I had imagined during those late-night conversations about growing old together. There was still grief, still loneliness, still moments when I longed for what might have been. But there was also joy, purpose, and a quiet pride in having had the courage to demand respect when it was not freely given. Frank would have been proud, I knew. And somewhere along this unexpected path, I had become proud of myself too. Perhaps the most valuable lesson in all of this was one I now shared with the children in my reading program when they encountered stories about difficult choices. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what hurts you, even when staying seems like the easier choice. Sometimes you have to leave in order to find your way back to yourself. And sometimes at 58 years old, you discover that life still holds possibilities you never imagined waiting just beyond the courage it takes to pick up your suitcase and step into the unknown. Have you ever had to make the difficult choice to walk away from a situation where you were not valued or respected? How did it change your life? Share your story in the comments below. If my journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and like this video. Remember that it is never too late to begin again, and you deserve to be treated with dignity at any age. Thank you for listening to my story today, and I wish you the courage to make the choices that honor your worth, whatever they may be.